Sophia Chen arrived at exactly 11:47 p.m. during a fierce spring storm. At 26, she was strikingly beautiful. Long black hair that caught the lobby's amber lighting, piercing green eyes that seemed to hold secrets, and the kind of confident grace that made people stop and stare. The night manager, Robert Martinez, remembered her vividly because she was the kind of guest who commanded attention without trying. She approached the front desk with a travel bag that looked expensive but worn, as if it had accompanied her on countless journeys. Her voice was melodic but carried an undertone of exhaustion when she spoke. "I have a reservation under Chen. Sophia Chen." Robert checked the computer system, his fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. After 30 years in hospitality, he prided himself on never making guests wait. But tonight, something was different. "I'm sorry, Miss Chen, but I don't see any reservation under that name for tonight." Sophia's expression didn't change, but Robert noticed her grip tighten slightly on her bag's handle. "Could you check again? I made it 3 weeks ago. Room 847. Room 847. Robert's blood ran cold. The Grandview was only 7 stories tall. "Miss Chen, I think there might be some confusion. Our hotel only goes up to the 7th floor. We don't have a room 847. For the first time, Sophia looked genuinely puzzled. She reached into her purse and pulled out a confirmation email printed on hotel letterhead that looked exactly like theirs, but featured a logo Robert had never seen before. "This is the confirmation I received," she said, sliding the paper across the marble counter. "It clearly states room 847 at the Grandview Hotel, 422 Southwest Morrison Street." Robert examined the document. The address was correct, the hotel name was correct, even the phone number matched. But the confirmation number format was unlike anything their system generated, and the signature at the bottom belonged to someone called Margaret Holloway, Guest Services Manager, a position that hadn't existed at the Grandview in over 20 years. Despite every instinct telling him something was wrong, Robert found himself wanting to help this mysterious woman. There was something about her presence that made refusing her seem impossible. "Let me see what I can do," he said, checking availability. "We have a beautiful suite on the 7th floor, room 712. Would that work for you?" Sophia considered this for a moment, then nodded. "That would be fine. Thank you for your understanding." As Robert processed her registration, he noticed other oddities. Her credit card worked perfectly, but when he tried to verify her ID, the system showed no record of anyone by that name with that address. Her driver's license looked authentic, but the issuing state was listed as New Portland, a place that didn't exist. Yet somehow, none of this seemed to matter. Every time Robert began to question these inconsistencies, Sophia would smile or make a comment that put him at ease. By the time he handed her the key card, he had convinced himself that the system glitches were just technology being unreliable. Sophia took the elevator to the 7th floor, her heels clicking softly on the hallway's Persian runner. She found room 712, inserted her key card, and stepped inside. The suite was elegant, cream-colored walls, antique furniture, and a window that offered a stunning view of the city lights reflected in the Willamette River. But as she set her bag on the bed, Sophia paused. Something felt wrong about the room. The proportions seemed slightly off, as if the space was larger than it should be. The window view showed buildings she didn't recognize, and in the distance, a bridge that definitely wasn't the Morrison Bridge she remembered. She walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but for just a moment, she could have sworn she saw someone else. A woman with similar features but sadder eyes, wearing clothes from a different era. Sophia shook her head, attributing the strange vision to travel fatigue. She had been driving for 2 days straight, following a job lead that had brought her to Portland. The consulting firm that had contacted her about a position had been vague about details, but the salary offer was too good to refuse. She pulled out her phone to call her sister back in Los Angeles, but discovered she had no signal. The hotel's Wi-Fi network didn't appear in her available connections, and when she tried to use the room's landline, she heard only silence. Growing concerned, Sophia decided to go back to the lobby to ask about phone service. But when she pressed the elevator button, nothing happened. The floor indicator showed the elevator was stuck between the third and fourth floors. She took the stairs, but as she descended, something impossible happened. She kept walking down, flight after flight, but according to the floor markers, she was somehow going up. First floor, second floor, third floor, but she was clearly walking downward. Finally, she pushed open a door marked Lobby and found herself back on the 7th floor, standing in front of room 712. Sophia tried again, this time counting steps and paying careful attention to the stairwell's construction. But the same thing happened. No matter which direction she walked, she ended up back at her own room. It was then that she noticed room 847. The door was directly across from hers, despite the fact that moments earlier, she was certain only room 712 existed on this floor. The brass numbers gleamed as if they had just been polished, and a small placard beneath them read, "Presidential Suite." Sophia approached the door, her heart racing. She pressed her ear against the wood and heard something that made her skin crawl. The sound of someone typing on an old-fashioned typewriter, accompanied by a woman's voice humming a melody she almost recognized. She knocked softly. The typing stopped. "Come in, dear," called a voice from inside. "I've been waiting for you." Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Sophia used her key card on room 847's door. Impossibly, it worked. The room beyond was identical to hers in layout but decorated in a style from the 1940s. Heavy velvet curtains, Art Deco furniture, and a woman sitting at an ornate desk, typing on a vintage Underwood typewriter. The woman looked up and smiled. She was beautiful in the same way Sophia was beautiful. The same bone structure, the same green eyes, the same elegant bearing. But she was older, perhaps in her 40s, and wore a navy blue dress that belonged to another era. "You're finally here," the woman said, rising from her chair.
I'm Margaret Holloway.
"I believe you have questions about your reservation." Sophia stared at the signature on her confirmation email, then back at the woman before her. "You're the guest services manager." "Among other things," Margaret replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Please sit down. We have so much to discuss." Sophia remained standing, every fiber of her being telling her to leave. "What is this place? How do you exist? The hotel doesn't have an 8th floor, doesn't it?" Margaret gestured toward the window. Outside, Sophia could see the city stretching below them, but they were clearly at least 8 stories up, possibly more. Reality is more flexible than most people believe. The Grandview has always been special. It exists in multiple, let's call them versions, simultaneously. Margaret returned to her typewriter and continued working on whatever document she had been preparing. "You see, dear, the hotel serves as a crossing point. People find their way here when they're between one life and another, when they're searching for something they've lost or running from something they can't face." "I'm just here for a job interview," Sophia said, though even as she spoke, she couldn't remember the name of the company that had contacted her. "Are you?" Margaret asked without looking up from her typing. "Tell me, what's the last thing you clearly remember before arriving in Portland?" Sophia opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. Her memories felt fuzzy, like trying to recall a dream after waking. She remembered driving, yes, but couldn't picture the route she had taken. She remembered packing her bag, but couldn't visualize her apartment in Los Angeles. She remembered her sister, but couldn't recall her name or what she looked like. "I don't understand what's happening to me," Sophia whispered. Margaret finally stopped typing and turned to face her completely. The living and the dead exist in the same space, separated only by perception. Sometimes, when someone dies suddenly or traumatically, they don't immediately realize they've crossed over. They continue their routines, make plans, travel to new cities for job interviews that don't exist. The words hit Sophia like a physical blow. "You're saying I'm dead." "I'm saying you're between states," Margaret corrected gently. "The question is whether you choose to accept what's happened and move forward, or whether you'll continue to exist in this liminal space, checking into hotels that exist just for you, having conversations with staff members who forget you the moment you leave their sight." Sophia sank into a chair, her mind reeling. "How long have I been like this?" "Time works differently here. You could have been traveling for days or decades, but I can tell you when it started. Margaret handed her a newspaper from the desk. The headline read, Fatal Car Accident Claims Young Consultant's Life on Highway 101. Below the headline was a photograph of a car, twisted and burned beyond recognition. And beside it, a picture of the victim, Sophia Chen, age 26, of Los Angeles. March 12, 2021, Margaret said softly. You were driving north on Highway 101 during a storm. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. Sophia stared at the newspaper, memories flooding back. The blinding headlights, the sound of impact, the moment of weightlessness before everything went dark. But I'm here, she said desperately. I'm talking to you. I can think and feel, and consciousness doesn't end with death, Margaret explained. It just changes location. Some people cross over immediately. Others linger, trying to complete unfinished business or refusing to accept what's happened. The Grandview exists to help souls like you make that transition. And you? What are you? Margaret smiled sadly. I was like you once, a guest who couldn't accept that her story had ended. I died in 1943, a hotel fire in San Francisco. I spent decades checking into different hotels, always looking for the one where I had died, always trying to go back and change what happened. She gestured around the elegant room. Eventually, I stopped fighting it and accepted a position here. I help other souls understand their situation and choose their path forward. Sophia stood up abruptly. I want to go back. There has to be a way. I had things to do. People who cared about me. Do you? Margaret asked gently. Think carefully, dear. Who was waiting for you in Los Angeles? Who called to check if you arrived safely in Portland? Sophia tried to remember her sister, her friends, her co-workers. But the harder she concentrated, the more the memories slipped away like smoke. She realized with growing horror that she couldn't recall a single meaningful relationship or unfinished obligation. This is what happens, Margaret explained. As souls linger between states, they lose connection to their earthly attachments. The memories fade until only the echo of purpose remains, the feeling that you should be somewhere, doing something without remembering what or why. Tears ran down Sophia's cheeks. So what happens now? Do I just stay here forever? You have a choice, Margaret said, walking to the window. You can continue as you are, an eternal guest, checking into hotels that exist only for you, driving endless highways to appointments that will never happen. Many souls choose this because it feels safer than the unknown. She turned back to Sophia. Or you can let go. Accept that your earthly story has ended and trust that whatever comes next is part of a larger journey you can't yet understand. Sophia joined her at the window. The city below looked both familiar and foreign. Portland, but not quite the Portland she remembered. Some buildings were different, some streets didn't exist, and in the distance mountains rose where she was certain there should be ocean. How do I let go? She asked. Margaret handed her a piece of hotel stationery and a pen. Write yourself a checkout notice. Sign it, date it, and leave it on the front desk. Then walk out the front door and don't look back. What will happen to me? I don't know, Margaret admitted. None of us do. That's what makes it an act of faith. Sophia took the paper and pen, her hands trembling. She thought about the life she thought she remembered, the plans she thought she had made, the future she thought was waiting for her. Then she thought about the emptiness she felt when she tried to recall specific details, specific people, specific reasons to cling to a story that had already ended. She wrote, Sophia Chen, room 712, checking out March 15, 2021. Thank you for your hospitality. I'm ready to go home now. She signed it with a flourish, then looked at Margaret. Will I see you again? Perhaps, Margaret said. Or perhaps you'll move on to whatever adventure awaits souls who have the courage to embrace the unknown. I hope it's the latter. Sophia walked to the door, then paused. What about you? When will you check out? Margaret smiled. When I've helped enough souls find their way forward. When I've learned whatever lesson kept me tethered to this place. Someday. Sophia nodded and stepped into the hallway. The elevator was working now, taking her smoothly to the ground floor. The lobby was empty except for Robert Martinez, who looked up from his computer with polite confusion. "Can I help you, miss?" He didn't recognize her. Just as Margaret had predicted, she was already fading from the memory of the living world. Sophia placed her checkout notice on the front desk. "Just checking out. Thank you for everything." She walked toward the front door, her footsteps echoing in the marble lobby. Behind her, she heard Robert's voice. "Wait, miss, I don't have any record of." But when he looked up from the checkout notice, she was gone. The security cameras showed nothing unusual that night. Robert Martinez finished his shift and went home, unable to shake the feeling that something significant had happened, though he couldn't remember what. The next morning, housekeeping found room 712 exactly as it had been before any guest arrived. Bed made, towels fresh, no sign that anyone had ever been there. There was no record in the computer system of any guest named Sophia Chen. But in room 847, which officially didn't exist, Margaret Holloway continued her work, typing letters to souls who were still traveling dark highways, still looking for hotels that would accept their impossible reservations, still believing their stories weren't finished. On her desk was a new piece of hotel stationery, already filled out. Margaret Holloway, room 847, requesting indefinite extension. Still have work to do. Outside her window, the city shifted and changed with each passing soul, reflecting the memories and perceptions of those caught between worlds. And somewhere in that fluid landscape, Sophia Chen walked through a door marked Exit and stepped into whatever light waits beyond the final checkout. The Grandview Hotel stands today exactly as it always has, 7 stories of elegant hospitality in downtown Portland. Room 712 continues to host living guests who sleep peacefully and never report anything unusual. But sometimes, late at night, staff members hear the sound of typing coming from the 8th floor. And occasionally, a confused guest approaches the front desk with a reservation for room 847, holding a confirmation letter signed by someone who doesn't exist, looking for a way to check out of a story that ended long ago. The living never stay in those rooms. They're reserved for souls still learning the difference between existing and living, still discovering that the most beautiful hotels are often the ones that help you realize it's time to go home. Margaret Holloway continues her eternal shift, helping guests who don't know they're already gone find the courage to take that final step into the unknown. And every night at 11:47 p.m., she listens for the sound of heels clicking across the lobby marble, knowing that somewhere, another lost soul is about to discover the most important reservation of their existence, the one that lets them finally check out of life itself.